Hello, fourth grade readers. It's Mrs. Lamondo, and I am back with you for our Fontes and Pinnell mini lesson of the day. So let's get started. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about genres and explore some books that you may be interested in reading. Okay. So, do you remember when we read Better Than You? It was way back in the beginning of the year. It dealt with a character that was having trouble with his friends. A story like this can happen in real life, but the author made it up. What is this genre or type of book? We know that made-up books are fiction, but since this is a fictional story that actually could happen, we would call it realistic fiction. Let's read aloud this book that could really happen. We would consider this book historical fiction instead of realistic fiction, since it's based on a real event from the past, but the story and the characters are imagined.
Hi there, are you ready to read aloud? Today we are going to read Kamashube Man by Alan Say. Kamashube Man. There's a foreword first, so let's take a look at that and hear what the foreword has to say. When I think of my childhood in Japan, I think of Kamashube. It means paper theater. Every afternoon, the Kamashube Man came on a bicycle that had a big wooden box mounted on the back seat. The box had drawers full of candies and a stage at the top. We bought candies and listened to the man's stories. As he told the stories, the Kamashube Man would slide out the picture cards in the stage one by one and put them in the back, like shuffling a deck of cards. The stories were actually one never-ending tale, with each installment ending with the hero or heroine hanging from a cliff or getting pushed off it. To be continued, the Kamashube Man would say with a grin, and we children would groan, but not too much. Tomorrow the hero and heroine would be saved for new adventures, and we would have our candies. Yes, they were cliffhangers. So when I came to America, that was one expression that nobody had to explain to me. Today, any sort of cliffhanger reminds me of the happy memories that Kamashube had given me. And with this book, though it has no high cliffs, let me be your paper theater man for a day. You'll have to get your own sweets. Alan Say, the author. Not so long ago in Japan, in a small house on a hillside, there lived an old man and his wife. Even though they never had children of their own, they called each other Jishan and Bashan. Jishan is grandpa and Bashan is grandma. One day, Bashan said, Jishan, you haven't said a word in 3 days. I've been thinking how much I miss going on my rounds, he said. Bashan stared. How many years has it been, she asked. Yes, quite a while, but my legs are good, and I've kept the bicycle in good order. I don't know, but one day won't hurt, I suppose. Should I make some candies? That would be very nice, Jishan said. The next day, Jishan rode his bicycle down the hillside in the first light of morning. How many years has it been? He asked himself. Do I remember such a fine morning? All so fresh and young. Well, good morning to you, rickety old bridge. Still going strong after all these years? He began to hum a tune that his mother used to sing when he was a small boy. When he came to the city, he stopped humming. This isn't right, he said. I must have taken a wrong turn. But there's that old house I used to go by every afternoon. A car horn blasted at him, then another. Why are there so many cars all of a sudden? Look at these tall buildings. You'd think I was in another country. A truck blasted its horn behind him. He pulled into a vacant lot and panted. Can't a man ride his bicycle in peace? Don't remember such rude drivers. Catching his breath, he looked across the street and gaped. Can this be? There's that old noodle shop. Used to be the only building here. That and a nice park all around. Now, look at all these shops and restaurants. They chopped down all those beautiful trees for them. Who needs to buy so many things and eat so many different foods? Shaking his head, he slowly took the canvas off the box on his bicycle. He propped up the stage and checked the story cards inside, patting each painting. Then he opened the bottom drawer in the box. You little jewels, he said, and started to hum again. Thank you, Bashan. You make good candy, just like in the old days. From the top drawer, he took out 2 wooden blocks, and holding one in each hand, he hit them together. A sharp, loud clack rang out. Come gather around me, little ones. Your Kamashube man is here again. Clack, clack, clack. Come get your sweets and listen to my stories. Clack, 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 clack. Yes, I can see you now, all your bright faces, clasping coins in your little hands. So happy to hear my clappers. So happy to see your Kamashube man. Patience, everyone. You'll get your sweets, each and every one of you. I have all your favorites, red ones and green ones and the soft ones on sticks. And here comes that boy, the one who never has any money. I'll get to him later. So which story will it be today? The mighty peach boy? Born from a giant peach? But wait, let's start at the beginning. Long ago, there once lived an old man and his wife who had no children. After the Peach Boy and the Bamboo Princess was a night. After the Peach Boy, the Bamboo Princess was a nice change, a gentle story. Then my favorite, the old man who made cherry trees bloom. And when I was finished, you all went home happy, except for that poor boy. Would you like a candy? I asked once. He said, I don't like candies, and ran away. Then one night, I was going home and saw a crowd of people gathered in front of a shop. They were staring at something called television. I was curious too, but not for long. It showed moving pictures. They were all jerky and blurry and had no colors at all. It wasn't long after that when television antennas started to sprout from the rooftops like weeds in the springtime. And the more they grew, the fewer boys and girls came out to listen to my stories. How can they like those blurry pictures better than my beautiful paintings? I asked. But there was nothing to be done. As I went around the familiar neighborhoods, the children started to act as though they didn't know me anymore. Even so, I went on clacking my clappers, and one day a little girl poked her head out the window and shushed me. Imagine a little girl shushing me. The Kamashube man was making too much noise. I sat on a park bench and ate a candy for lunch. How could the world change so quickly? Was I a bad storyteller? Then that boy came, the boy who didn't like candies. Why aren't you watching television? I asked. I don't like television, he said. But you like my stories, I said, and he nodded his little head. I got up and set the stage. What's your favorite story? I asked. Little 1 inch, he answered. So I told him the story of a brave little boy who was only 1 inch tall. And as I told the story, the boy never looked at the picture cards on the stage. He was looking at me the whole time with his mouth wide open. He even smiled now and then. When I finished the story, I started to take out some sweets to give him, but he was already running away. Wait, I shouted, but he kept running and never turned his head. That was the last time I saw that boy. That was the last day I was Kamashube man.
Wow.
I was that boy, a loud voice cried out. Startled, the Kamashube man looked up and saw that a large crowd had gathered before him. We grew up with your stories, someone else shouted. Tell us little 1 inch again. And the Bamboo Princess, the Peach Boy. He started to say something, and people began to clap their hands. He took a deep bow, and the applause got louder. A young man with a movie camera struggled up to him. They bowed to each other, and as the old man gave him a candy, a roar went up. Look, he has all the same old sweets, just like the old days. And the office clerks and shopkeepers, bankers and waitresses, housewives and deliverymen, all lined up in a big circle around the Kamashube man. It was dark when he got home. Bashan was watching the evening news. The Kamashube man was the featured story. I see you had a busy day, she said. It was a good day, she nodded. Will you be going out tomorrow? Yes, and the day after. Then you will need more sweets. That would be very nice. Could you make it twice the usual amount? I'll see if I have enough sugar, she said, and shut the television off. The afterword. Kamashube is said to have started in the 1930s, but it is part of a long tradition of storytelling in Japan. Early precursors of Kamashube were not easily transportable, but in the late 1920s, a form of Kamashube was developed for a small wooden stage that could be strapped onto a bicycle and carried from town to town. The Kamashube performer made a living by selling candy, and he told his stories in serial fashion so that audiences came repeatedly to buy candy and to hear the next episode of the story. Just as precursors of Kamashube had modeled themselves on popular forms of traditional theater, such as kabuki, this new form drew heavily on techniques and storylines from popular films. Many of the performers had worked as benshi, narrators for silent films, and when talking pictures came into Japan, they turned to Kamashube for their livelihood. Kamashube is poor man's theater, and it flourished during a time when Japan experienced extreme financial hardship. In the 1930s, Japan suffered an economic depression that sent many people onto the streets looking for a way to live from one day to the next, and Kamashube offered artists and storytellers a meager living. During and after World War II, Kamashube became an ever more integral part of the society as a form of entertainment that could be transported into bomb shelters and even devastated neighborhoods. At this time, it was entertainment as much for adults as for children. By the 1950s and the advent of television, Kamashube had become so popular that television was initially referred to as Denke, electric, Kamashube. As Japan became increasingly affluent, however, Kamashube became associated with poverty and backwardness. The Kamashube teller's candy was considered unsanitary and the stories unwholesome. Increasingly, parents and educators pushed to have Kamashube stories harnessed to educational aims, and today, the Kamashube storyboards published in Japan are mainly sold to schools and libraries. Eventually, Kamashube as a street performance art all but disappeared. The artists who had made their living with Kamashube turned to more lucrative pursuits, notably the creation of manga, comic books, and later anime, but they never forgot their roots in Kamashube. Tara McGowan, Japanese folklore scholar.
Wow, I love that. I love how that was historical fiction. You can see the difference between realistic fiction, which is something that could actually happen but is made up, and historical fiction, a story that's based in the past, in real things that happened, but the characters are made up. Let's take a look at this book, My Son the Time Traveler. It's a fiction story, but it involved alien characters and time travel, so we would consider this book science fiction. So let's think about books you've read recently and what they may be. Was it realistic fiction, a story that could happen in real life? Historical fiction, a problem based on a real event of the past and a setting that's in the past, but the characters in the story are imagined. Have you read traditional literature, stories that are very old and cannot happen in the real world, and sometimes the characters trick each other? Or have you read science fiction? It has technology that isn't invented yet and can involve things such as time travel and aliens. As you're reading, please be aware of the genre of your book and know that there are more genres than simply just fiction and nonfiction. Remember today to read on Kids for at least 20 minutes and also complete your reading response for your teacher. As always, if you have any questions, you can direct them to your teacher when we go live with you. Bye, readers. See you next time.